My boss accidentally sent a text to the entire office. 43 people saw it, including me. Then she asked me to meet her alone. I thought she was going to explain the message. I was wrong. When I realized what I'd sent, the first thing I felt was relief.
It arrived at 7:52 on a Tuesday morning. I was standing at the kitchen counter in my apartment with a coffee I had not tasted yet, scrolling through the overnight work messages the way I did every morning before my brain was fully online. A message from the general office channel. 43 people in that thread. The sender, Margaret Osei, regional director. My boss for going on 3 years. The woman who ran our quarterly reviews with the precision of a surgeon and the warmth of a verdict. I almost skipped it. She posted in that channel maybe once a month, usually something about parking permits or the holiday schedule. But the preview line was different. I squinted at it. Then I set my coffee down. Then I read it again. It said, "He has no idea how much I think about him." 7 words, sent to 43 people, including me. I stood in my kitchen for a long moment, with the phone in my hand and the coffee going cold on the counter. Then I typed the only thing that made sense. I typed, "Margaret, I think you sent this to the wrong chat." I hit send. Then I stared at that message sitting below hers in the thread and thought about all the ways this Tuesday was going to be different from every other Tuesday. Her response came 11 minutes later, not to the general channel, to me directly. One line, "Please don't come in early." I came in at my normal time. The office was already half full when I arrived. Open plan, 40 workstations, glass walls on 3 sides, and a row of meeting rooms down the left. Margaret's corner office sat at the far end with a clear sightline to the main entrance. She could always see who came in. Everyone knew that. I badged through the door and walked to my desk, keeping my eyes ahead. I could feel it before I saw it. The quiet that happens when 40 people are pretending very hard not to look at the same thing. I sat down, opened my laptop, put my bag down the way I did every morning. Farouk, from compliance, rolled his chair over before my screen even loaded. He was 32, wore the same gray sweater every Tuesday, and had never once in 3 years initiated a conversation before 10 a.m. He said, "You see the channel this morning?" He nodded very slowly, rolled back without another word. I kept my eyes on my screen. Across the floor, through the glass wall of her office, I could see Margaret at her standing desk, head down, both hands on her keyboard. The posture she used when she was concentrating or when she was trying to look like she was concentrating. She had not looked up since I walked in. That was already unusual. Margaret Osei noticed everything. She clocked arrivals, tracked timelines, remembered the name of your dentist if you mentioned it once in a meeting. She had not looked up. For 30 minutes, I answered emails I had already read and pretended to update a report that did not need updating. At 9:15, my phone buzzed. A calendar invite. One-on-one check-in. 10 a.m. Conference Room B. Conference Room B was the smallest one. No window to the floor. No glass wall. The one people used when they needed to say something that was not for everyone. I accepted the invite. At exactly 10 o'clock, I picked up my notebook and walked to Conference Room B. She was already there, standing, not sitting, her back to the door, looking at the whiteboard on the far wall. It was blank. She was not looking at anything, just standing, facing something that wasn't there. I closed the door. She turned. Margaret Osei was 41 years old, 9 years older than me, and she had spent most of those 9 years making every room she walked into feel more organized just by arriving. She wore a slate blue blazer, hair pulled back the way it always was. The expression she usually kept, controlled, forward-facing, 3 steps ahead, was not there right now. What was there instead was something I had never seen on her face in 3 years. She looked like someone who had run out of talking points. "Sit down," she said. I sat. She stayed standing, which told me she did not know what she was doing with her hands. "I owe you an explanation," she said. "You don't," I said. "Marcus, that was my name. She used it maybe 4 times a year. I accidentally sent a personal message to the general channel." "I know," I said. "I was in the general channel." She looked at me directly for the first time since I had walked in. Her jaw was tight, not angry, the kind of tight you get when you are deciding something. "I need you to know it was not intentional," she said. "I know that too." She exhaled, turned slightly away, hand moving to the back of the chair she was not sitting in. The context of the message, Margaret. I leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to explain the context. I'm not going to pretend I don't know what the message said. But I'm also not going to make this harder than it already is." She looked at me. Something in her face shifted, not softening exactly, more like a calculation changing. "What do you think it said?" she asked. That was an unexpected question. "I think it said what it said," I answered. She was quiet for a moment. "And?" she asked. "And I've been at my desk for 2 hours trying to figure out the right thing to do with that information." She sat down then, not in the seat across the table, in the chair beside it, one seat closer than a normal one-on-one. She set her hands flat on the table, the way she did when she was about to say something she had checked twice. "How long have you been at this company?" she asked. 3 years, I said. "And in 3 years," she paused, "has anything about how I treat you been different from how I treat anyone else on this team?" I thought about it honestly. "No," I said. "Nothing." She nodded once. That was intentional. The room was very quiet. Down the hall, someone's phone rang twice and stopped. The ventilation hummed in the ceiling. Margaret was looking at her hands. "For how long?" I asked. It was a simple question. She knew what I was asking. Her jaw moved. "That is not a fair question," she said. "I know," I said. "Answer it anyway." She looked up. In 3 years, Margaret Osei had looked at me every way a director looks at a member of her team. Assessment, approval, correction, steady professional attention. She had never looked at me like this. "Long enough," she said, that the message was not a surprise to me when I saw what I'd sent. The surprise was that I had been that careless. I sat with that for a moment. Outside the conference room, the office carried on. Keyboards, low voices, the faint sound of the coffee machine on the far wall. 43 people doing their Tuesday. "What do you want to happen now?" I asked. She almost smiled. It was a question she would have asked in this situation. I had borrowed it from her without meaning to. "I want you to forget it," she said. "And I know that's not possible." "It's not," I agreed. "And I want whatever this has been," she said slowly, "to stay exactly what it is. Professional, clear, appropriate." "Also not possible?" I asked. She looked at me. "Also not possible." I put my notebook down. I had not written anything in it. "Margaret, don't." Her voice was careful. "I know what you're going to say, and I need you to not say it in this room." Because there are 40 people 20 meters away who already have opinions about this morning, she said, and I cannot control what happens in those opinions if I'm not careful about what happens in here. I understood that. She had built something over 12 years in this industry. Every conversation she'd ever had in a professional setting had been deliberate. The message this morning was the first thing that hadn't been. "Can I ask you one thing?" I said. She waited. "When you realized what you'd sent," I said, "what was the feeling? Before the damage control, before the one-on-one invite, the first second." Her hands shifted on the table. "Relief," she said, very quietly, like she hadn't meant to say it at all. The word landed between us, and neither of us moved. "Because it was out," I said. "Because it was out," she said. I nodded. She looked away toward the whiteboard that was still blank. "I'm going to need you," she said carefully, "to be very professional for the rest of today." "I can do that. And possibly for the next several weeks while I work out," she stopped. "While I work out what to do with myself." "I can do that too," I said. She looked at me again. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" she said. "I'm going to make it easy," I said. "I'm just not going to pretend the message didn't say what it said." She stood. The director's posture came back, shoulders even, chin up, the return of a woman who had run 12 quarterly reviews and never blinked. The armor was back on, but I had seen it off, and so had she, standing in this room with me. "The Nakamura brief," she said. "It's due Thursday." "I know," I said. "I'll have it to you by Wednesday noon." She nodded once, moved to the door, hand on the frame. She paused exactly the way I had somehow known she would. She did not turn, just half a breath. "Thank you," she said, "for not making it worse." "I wouldn't," I said. She walked out. I sat in conference room B for another 3 minutes. The notebook was still in front of me, still empty. I looked at it for a moment, then picked it up and walked back to my desk. Farouk did not roll over. Nobody said anything. The morning continued. At noon, I got a message from her, work-related, a comment on a draft I had sent last week, 3 lines of precise feedback, entirely professional, nothing left over from conference room B. At the bottom, 1 extra line. "The Nakamura framing in section 2 is strong. That section sounds like you." I read it twice. I wrote back, "I'll keep it." At 4:30 I was finishing up when I heard footsteps near my desk. I looked up expecting Farouk. It was Margaret. She stopped a reasonable distance away, arms loose at her sides, which for her was the equivalent of someone else being completely unguarded. "The team is doing drinks," she said. "You should come." It was the kind of thing she said to everyone. Neutral, managerial, open. "Sure," I said. She started to go. "Margaret," she turned. The floor was still busy around us. People packing up, pulling on coats, conversations about the week ahead. "When you figure out what to do with yourself," I said quietly, "I'm not going anywhere." She held my gaze for exactly 3 seconds. She did not smile. She did not say anything. She turned and walked back toward her office, but her shoulders had changed. Just slightly, just enough. I packed my bag slowly and let myself notice that for the first time in 3 years, I had no idea how tomorrow was going to feel. You've been here before. That moment when something that was perfectly contained suddenly isn't, and everything changes in 7 words. Subscribe for a new story every week. And tell me in the comments, would you have said anything, or let the message speak for itself?